So one of the great things about tivozanib is it's a really well-tolerated drug. I think it's probably the best tolerated TKI, owing in part to its selectivity for the VEGF receptor, whereas sorafenib is more of a dirty compound. So in Tivo-3, you'll see the incidence of adverse events of any grade as well as high grade were significantly higher in the sorafenib arm. And in sorafenib, what you saw was off-target toxicities, hand-foot syndrome, diarrhea, rash, whereas with Tivo, what you see are what I'd call on-target toxicities such as hypertension, hypothyroidism, dysphonia. So not only a greater incidence of toxicity, but I think more bothersome toxicities with sorafenib. Tivo-3 was a multinational randomized phase 3. It took patients who had 2 to 3 prior systemic therapy regimens for advanced kidney cancer and randomized them to either tivozanib or sorafenib in a 1-to-1 fashion. There was 350 patients treated until progression or toxicity. Patients had to have had at least one prior VEGF TKI. About 25% of patients had prior checkpoint inhibitors. I think 50% had 2 prior TKIs. So it was a very refractory, heavily VEGF pretreated population. So this trial was designed to look at progression-free survival for Tivo versus sorafenib. And what was found was almost exactly as the hypotheses had been set up, of 4 versus 6 months. The numbers weren't quite that, but approximately 4 versus 6 months, significantly favoring tivozanib. I think one of the most important things was that, as you'll see in the presentation, the durability of responses with tivozanib were somewhat extraordinary. I'm not sure I've seen that with TKI-based trials before. I've been doing them for a long time. The number of patients who were still on and progression-free at 2 years was much higher at 1 year and 2 years was much higher with tivozanib. So there's something about the durability of response that was quite impressive. Tivozanib is approved in the EU, not yet in the US, and so that it showed significant progression-free survival advantages. They were durable and the drug's very tolerable. Next step is to wait for overall survival. There'll be some initial survival data presented at this meeting, and then a final survival analysis later this year, and then hopefully file for FDA approval.